Good morning, and thank you for joining me on the Path to Liberty. This is the Fast Friday edition of the show for January 24th, 2020. On this episode, I'm going to share with you what I see as 4 essential first steps for protecting the right to keep and bear arms from attacks, whether on a federal or a state level. We're primarily focusing on principles, but also a little bit of activism as well. First of all, my name is Michael Bolden. We broadcast live every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time from here in my home office and studio in downtown Los Angeles for the 10th Amendment Center. You can find all the platforms we're on, whether it's video or audio, all of our archives, the ways to follow us, to get our email newsletter, to support us through our membership program for as little as $2 a month. Get all of that over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/path to liberty. Again, 10thamendmentcenter.com/path to liberty, all spelled out. I can't thank you enough for spending a little bit of your time with me today and hearing what I have to say about this incredibly important topic. I promise to not take too much of that time because, of course, it's Fast Friday. Let's see if I can get this done in about 10 minutes or so. First of all, and this is going to be familiar to those of you who've heard me talk about this in the past, but I think it's so important that I think this is really the first step that we need to take in order to be victorious for liberty in the long run. And that starts out with the fact that we are not talking about Second Amendment rights. There's no such thing as a Second Amendment right. You have a natural right to keep and bear arms. The Second Amendment is not your gun permit. Having a natural right to keep and bear arms means you don't need a permission slip from government. There are no founders in existence, none of them who referred to the right to keep and bear arms as Second Amendment rights. And there were none of them who thought that if the Second Amendment wasn't ratified, they wouldn't have the right to keep and bear arms, because the right to keep and bear arms is your birthright. It comes from God, from nature, whatever you say, your creator. But it is a natural right, and it does not come with a permission slip. For those of you who do make that argument, and even if it's not in with any bad intention, what you are doing is you're helping set up a situation for other people because they see the right as something coming from a document. And if a right comes from a document, those who have enough power to interpret that document, whether they should or not, they're going to interpret that document in a way that in the long run destroys your rights. So the right to keep and bear arms, not Second Amendment rights. That's my first step that we need to take, is we have to have a mental shift on how we approach things. The second one is very similar, and that is all gun control is bad. Not some, not the ones that don't affect us, not the ones that we don't care about. It's all bad. State, federal, local, period. Now, even if you aren't talking about them as violating the Second Amendment, whatever it may be, it's all bad. Now, a lot of people that we talk to, when we talk about how there is a lot of bad gun control, they blow off some of the things that we complain about and we want to nullify with activism in the long run and the short run. For example, the bump stock ban. And let me pull up this article that I covered. They say things like, oh, we don't need it. It's a kiddie toy. It's dangerous. It doesn't work well. It's a plastic kiddie thing. Whatever. It doesn't matter that the Trump administration did this. I'm not going to oppose them on that. I'm going to pick other battles because we've got these leftists that are coming and take our guns from us, even though they're already taking our guns from us and accessories like bump stocks. Now, mind you, the worst part about the bump stock ban that Trump implemented in 2018 is the precedent it creates for further gun control in the future. And the fact that the Obama administration looked at doing the same thing and thought that they couldn't do it. Here, from an article I will link in our show notes at 10thamendmentcenter.com/path to liberty. This is what the ATF under Obama had to say. The stock has no automatically functioning mechanical parts or springs and performs no automatic mechanical function when installed. Accordingly, we find that the bump stock is a firearm part and is not regulated as a firearm under the Gun Control Act or the National Firearms Act. Yet the Trump administration decided that the bump stock is no longer a part, but it can be regulated and controlled as a firearm in and of itself. Now, mind you, neither of those federal acts should exist at all if we recognize that there should be no gun control, especially on a federal level. If we recognize that from the outset, it's all bad, but this is what happens. And now what's going to happen when the next gun grabber gets in there? They're certainly going to use that precedent and redefine other accessories, other parts as machine guns and ban them completely. We also point out to a lot of people that the Trump administration in 2018 for the fiscal year, we're waiting for 2019 in the next couple of months to see how bad things were, but in 2018 conducted the most federal gun control enforcement, federal gun law enforcement actions of anyone in history. And on August 5th, 2019, Donald Trump himself said this: At my direction, the DOJ banned bump stocks. Last year, we prosecuted a record number of firearms offenses. I'll link to this article with the statistics in the show notes as well, but let me scroll up here. And we're talking about cases recommended for prosecution for the 2018 fiscal year, 10,691, most in history, even according to Donald Trump's words. Indicted cases, most in history in 2018, 7,630. And the number of convicted cases wasn't the worst in history. It was the third worst in history. But the worst in history was in 2017 under a combination, if you count the year, an overlap, a combination of Obama and Trump. But it's all incredibly, incredibly bad. And some people tell me, oh, well, that's okay. Those are just out to get criminals. There's a lot of violence going on in places like Chicago. But the fact is, what's being enforced are federal gun control laws, federal gun laws. And under the Constitution, the number of federal gun laws that are authorized is zero. Let me say that again. Under the Constitution, the number of federal gun laws that are authorized is zero. So these numbers should not be going up if you want to be a good guy. They always should be going down. But year in and year out, they keep getting worse, whether there's a Republican or a Democrat in power. So that's number two. All gun control is bad, even if you think it's inconsequential or it doesn't apply to you. The third thing is, soon as you give them an inch, they're going to take a mile. And the founders warned us about this over and over. I've done episodes on this, so I'm just going to cover it briefly. Here, for example, from James Otis Jr. He put it this way: he that would palm the doctrine of unlimited passive obedience and non-resistance upon mankind is not only a fool and a knave, but a rebel against common sense, as well as the laws of God, of nature, and his country. The laws of God, of nature, and his country. I apologize for that. So he's saying if you turn a blind eye, you sit idly by, and you passively comply, passively comply, or you tell other people that it's okay to do that, you're a fool and a knave and a rebel against everything. Common sense, the laws of God, the laws of nature, the laws of your country. And here's how Samuel Adams put it. He said, let us remember that if we suffer tamelessly a lawless attack upon our liberty, we encourage it and involve others in our doom. So those of you who believe that the bump stock ban is no big deal, you're not going to stand up against it, you're not going to waste your time on it, it's no problem because it's a stupid product and you can come up with other ways to do what they claim those products are claiming to be doing things, or the producers of those products, you are suffering tamelessly a lawless attack upon liberty, other people's liberty. You're encouraging it. That means the next person is going to do more, and you're involving other people in all of our doom. So we vehemently oppose that type of approach. And then the last thing I want to point out, number 4, is that we need to nullify federal gun control right now. Like, gun control at every level, of course, is really bad. It's a violation of your natural right to keep and bear arms. But it's really important to get some wins on the board, especially in the face with so many losses, especially in the face of an NRA-backed administration that has ramped up federal enforcement, that has implemented through executive action more federal gun control. It's only going to get worse and worse and worse. Now, if you've been watching a lot of my episodes recently, you'll know that nullifying state-level laws is incredibly difficult. So if you're in business, a lot of times you're trying to do some sales, for example, you want to go for what's called low-hanging fruit, the stuff that you can reach and get easily without a lot of work. Nullifying state gun control has to be done at some point, somehow. I don't know exactly how all the time, but it's going to be very difficult and take a long time. Nullifying federal gun control is logistically very simple. And here's why. The federal government, and this is from an article that I will link as well, the federal government relies heavily on state cooperation to implement and enforce almost all of its laws, regulations, and acts, including gun control. The National Governors Association back in 2013 made it very clear. They said states are partners with the federal government on most federal programs. And I've said this repeatedly. Partnerships don't work too well when half the team quits. And we've looked through the statistics. We know how many people that the ATF has employed. It's a little bit over 5,000 employees for the entire country. A third of them or so are in administration. So they've got 3,500 or so enforcement agents for the entire country. And we know what their capacity is. It's somewhere between 8 or 10,000 closed cases per year. Maybe it's going to go up to 11, but I mean, that's significant. But think of it this way. If there were 10 or 11 million undocumented short-barreled shotguns, all in violation of the 1934 National Firearms Act, which shouldn't exist, there is zero chance the ATF would be able to do anything about it if the states and local governments were not participating in enforcement of federal gun control. So the number 4 step that needs to happen is to create gun rights sanctuary cities, gun rights sanctuary states by banning the use of manpower or other resources, money, to help enforce or effectuate any federal gun control measure on the books. We are currently tracking legislation in a number of states, Missouri, West Virginia, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and we hope to see others like Arizona in the near future. There are 41 co-sponsors as of the last time I checked this morning on House Bill 1637 in Missouri to take on and ban enforcement on the state level, remove those resources from the enforcement of all federal gun control, past, present, and future. And this would be a huge, because either the Trump administration is going to have to be put into a place where they have to come after Missouri for wanting to protect the right to keep and bear arms, or they're going to have to back down. And the sooner they back down, the sooner people are going to learn that the world does not end when you create a gun rights sanctuary state. Here in 2014, going back to the article, Judge Andrew Napolitano discussed how this would play out. And here's how he put it. If the federal government limits guns in a state, will it need the assistance of state police to enforce those limitations? Yes, they will. And do the states have the right to refuse to enforce federal law that's against public policy? Yes, they do. And he also said if a single state took this approach, it would make federal gun control enforcement nearly impossible. I want to see gun control enforcement to be 100% impossible, but at this stage of the game, with decades and decades of gun control on the books that needs to be overturned, rejected, resisted, undermined, and nullified, I'm going to go with nearly impossible every single time. Now, there you have it. Really, what I'm recommending primarily is a shift in mindset in most situations and some activism. And I think the shift in mindset matches how John Adams saw the American Revolution against the Empire of Britain. Here's from a letter in February of 1818 to Hezekiah Niles. He says, "But what do we mean by the American Revolution? Do we mean the American War? The revolution was effected before the war commenced. The revolution was in the minds and hearts of the people, a change in the religious sentiments and of their duties and obligations." And he goes on, and he says, "This radical change in the principles, opinions, sentiments, and affection of the people was the real American Revolution." Well, I hope you found this interesting. I hope you found it educational. I hope you're ready to take part in this revolution of the mind and state and local activism to protect the right to keep and bear arms. And we can apply this same thing to so many other issues today. If you support the show, make sure to smash that like button. Feel free to sign up for a membership program. It's $2 a month over at 10thamendmentcenter.com/members. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you next week here on the Path to Liberty.